just hit the stop button. It's the stop button. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Close the door before we go.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming today. My name is Elizabeth Meany, and I'm a mediator with Main Street Legal Services here at CUNY School of Law. You can call me Elizabeth, and if it's okay, can we do? Are you guys comfortable with first names?
Yeah.
And your name is
Fiona.
Fiona, and your
Cornelia.
Cornelia. You can use your real name if you want to, of course. So you can be Cornelia. Fiona and Cornelia. So let me tell you a little bit about mediation and what we're going to do today. I'm a mediator here with Main Street Legal Services, and as a mediator, it's not my job to be a judge or to make a decision for you guys about what you want to do in this case. My role is to provide you with an impartial guide to sort of help you through the process of getting all of the issues out in the case and seeing if we can resolve them. I am going to remain neutral. I've never met either one of you before. If you have any concerns about neutrality at any point in the process, just stop me and we'll talk about it and decide how to move forward. I would like to ask that you guys keep whatever we discuss in this session confidential, and it can't be used, the negotiation discussions can't be used as evidence in court later. Anything that you bring in that's discoverable still is applicable, so whatever evidence you have is still fine, but the discussions about where we might go should remain confidential within this room, and that's so that you guys can feel comfortable to speak freely, and hopefully we can make some progress towards working this out. Let me tell you a little bit about the process. We generally begin with each of you speaking and telling your whole side of the story, and that's uninterrupted, and I'll explain back to you what I think I've heard so that you can make sure that we have it all right. And then there could be some follow-up questions maybe so that we can get all of the issues out on the table that we need to address. That's the main goal to begin with. I might ask to speak with each of you individually or privately. In that case, that those conversations will be kept confidential if necessary as well. Once we feel like we have all the issues out on the table, we'll begin going through an agenda and addressing the issues and seeing if you guys can come up with some solutions that you'd like to throw out there and entertain. This process is, you're both here voluntarily. You don't have to come to an agreement today. If you do come to an agreement, it should be something that you're completely comfortable with. If you decide that you don't want to move forward with the mediation, you still have all the options for pursuing the case available to you that you had when you walked in the room, so there's really not much to lose. Do either of you have any questions for me about mediation or the process?
No, I think
Well, if everybody's okay, then I'd like to say that I'm really pleased that you guys came here today to talk about this, and I think we can make some good progress together. So first, Fiona, as the person who brought this case, I would like for you to tell me what brought you to this point today.
So I'm a group leader in the inventory control system for Computers Incorporated, and I was fired 3 weeks ago. So I missed several days of work a month ago because of a family emergency, medical emergency. My son, he's 10 years old, he had a very severe asthma attack and he was hospitalised for a few days. And I'm a single parent, so I was the only one responsible for him. This was a major issue that happened. So on the evening of the asthma attack, I did bring a fellow work colleague up to inform her that I wouldn't be in work for the next day and a few days following because of the incident, and I just assumed that she would tell my supervisor. However, I came to realise that she didn't tell my supervisor because she'd been called out to go out of office for a few days and had forgotten to mention or anything. So I didn't call in on the few days that I was away because I was so traumatised by what was going on with my son when he was in hospital. I'm a single parent, there was no one else to fall back on, so that was my main concern. And I do realise that I should have rung up, but I did assume that my work colleague would have done the same. When I came back to work, I went straight to my supervisor and told them of the issue, and they just yelled at me instantly, just saying that I left for no reason, didn't tell them. They were very angry and they fired me instantly. I mean, I did get angry back, I did retaliate, I did yell back because of their lack of respect for the situation that I've been in. They showed no concern, they didn't apologise, they didn't show any sympathy for what had happened, and it was a very stressful time. They just instantly yelled and were aggressive towards me, and then fired me on the spot for what had happened. So I am annoyed about it, but to be honest with you, I do think that there are other reasons for them firing me. Previously, before she became my supervisor, she wanted to get involved with me personally and asked me to go out for dinner with her, and I did make it clear that I didn't want to have any personal interaction. I wasn't interested in that side of things, and I do feel that this has been a cause of revenge or a way to get back at me for what's happened. So I just, if we can come to, I want an apology, I want to get my job back, I want this resolved, and if we don't get it resolved here, I will file a lawsuit. I just want some sort of, I just want my job back, because I feel like it's very unfair that I've been fired for such a traumatic thing that's happened. I could do nothing about it. I realise I should have rang up and called in, but at the time, my 10-year-old son thought he was going to die, he nearly died. So I feel like there could be more understanding of what's happened.
It sounds like you've been through a pretty traumatic time.
Yes.
With your son being so ill and then being fired from work. So the way I understand what you're saying is that you've worked with this company for a period of time,
Yes.
and your son became very ill. It was an emergency situation. You had asked a coworker to let your supervisor know that you were going to be out for a few days while you were attending to your son and taking care of his medical needs. Your coworker forgot and didn't do that. So when you returned to work, you immediately went to your supervisor to try and explain what happened, but you were fired immediately. And you think that there may be a little bit more going on than just
Definitely.
because your son was sick and because you missed work,
Yes.
but maybe there's some personal things happening between you and your supervisor.
Yes, no, definitely. I feel like they have had no support or consideration of what I've been through, and it was a very traumatic event. And I feel that she's just used this reason as a reason to get revenge, because I showed no interest in wanting to develop a personal relationship with her. And I mean, I just don't think that's fair. I want compensation, I want my job back. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not too bothered about working in this environment any longer. I mean, I have had offers from my brother-in-law, and he was on about creating partnership with me. I was going to leave here and work together with him in about a month or so, because I'm done with like the corporate environment. I kind of want something a bit more slow paced. But I mean, I don't want to be fired. I want to be able to choose when I leave here. I've worked hard here. I've worked here for 3 years. I don't think it's fair that because of a reason that's out of my control, that should be understood, I should be fired. I'd rather stay here, work here for like a month and leave in a month's time. So obviously it doesn't go on my record that I was fired or anything, because there's no reason it should. I shouldn't be fired. And then I have the choice to leave if I wanted to and do what I want with my brother-in-law. But I don't think it's fair that I get fired for something completely out of my control and was so very traumatic. It was my son. He nearly died. So I think they should show more understanding towards that, really.
Right. So it sounds like you do have some other options besides going back.
Yes.
But you feel that you were treated very unfairly and unjustly.
Yes.
And it would be better for you if you went back to work for a little while and decided on your own whether or not you wanted to pursue some of these other options.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just feel that's more secure. It's more reasonable for me. I should have the chance to decide, not be fired straight, automatically be stuck in a position of where to go. I think that my supervisor should, and the company who are meant to care for their employees, should show some understanding of my situation and allow me to figure out what's going to happen. Yeah.
It sounds like a very stressful and traumatic time.
Yes, it really, really was.
And is your son doing better?
Yeah, he is better now, but it's still very, you have to be careful, very wary of the situation, because we don't want it to happen again, and you never know when it could happen. So,
Right.
I mean, working for a company that I know aren't very understanding of the situation is also 10 times more stressful, because I've got to worry about him, but then I've also got to worry about what if it happens again, and obviously I've just got fired, so I'll have no health insurance, I've got to worry about that. So that's why I would like to get my job back, because I've got that security until I then decide what I'm doing in the future. I like to have that security for my son mainly, and for me, but I have to think of all these things because
Right.
of the situation.
So you really do feel like you need to go back to the security that you have in that
Yes.
job and having
Yeah.
those safety nets for you and your son.
At least for a month or so, just until I've figured out what I want to do. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it was fair that I was fired for such a reason that was totally out of my control.
Okay, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
Not really, I want an apology really more than anything.
Right.
Like, I had no sympathy shown, no consideration for what happened to me, and I did try and tell them. I told a work colleague, and I assumed she would say so. I mean, I understood that. I do understand that I should have rang up and explained what was happening, but at the time, that was the least of all. I did tell a colleague and hoped that she would, but from there on, after I'd done that, I was just focused on my son rather than work, and I do feel that I did go straight to them when I got back, and I think they could have been a lot more understanding about the situation and at least apologise for the way in which they handled the case, and give me my job back for a certain amount of time until maybe I want to stay there, but maybe I do want to leave. But I do feel like it's unfair that I have been fired for such a reason.
Right, so you feel, on top of the stress that you're feeling dealing with the illness of your son,
Yes.
you feel that you were treated very unfairly.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Cornelius, can you tell me the facts as you see them that brought us here today?
Yes. It started with Fiona's 3-day absence of not calling. It wasn't until after the fact I found out something was going on with a family member. I was uncertain of what occurred. However, this seems to be a pattern of insolence and disrespect from Fiona at work prior to this incident. And it just wasn't the 3-day absence in general. There were other instances of being disrespectful to me and other coworkers, and the firing was not out of revenge for the incident that was mentioned. When I became the supervisor, it became a bit of a tradition to invite employees out to lunch. However, after a long day, I thought it might be nice to get to know a new employee at dinner. Obviously, it was perceived a different way by Fiona, but the invitation was declined again in a quite disrespectful way. Understandably so, it wasn't that me as her superior thought it should be handled in a professional manner, but more in a civil manner. So that's where we are.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that you feel like Fiona perhaps didn't do quite as good a job in the office as she thinks she did, that maybe she was a little disrespectful towards you and some other employees, and that this incident that happened with her son was kind of just the final straw. It wasn't the one thing that this was all based on. Is there anything else you would like to add to that?
I don't think so. I mean, again, I do feel badly finding out that something did happen with your son. However, I don't think it negates the previous conduct that occurred in the workplace.
Okay, and just so I understand, you actually served as Fiona's direct supervisor, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you have authority today to negotiate with Fiona to come to an agreement about this?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because if the discussion needs to be held with your superior or whatever, we would want to bring them into the discussion. Okay, so Fiona, after hearing what Cornelia has said, is there anything that you would like to add to
Yeah,
that?
well, I don't think I've been disrespectful at all to anyone at the workplace at all. The only time that maybe she has taken offence is when I declined her invitation to go out. Got good relationships with all my work colleagues. I'm a team player, I'm a group worker. That's not in my nature to be disrespectful towards people, and I feel this is her bad feelings towards me because I didn't want to take a professional relationship any further, and I think that's fair to do so. That you just want to keep something professional rather than personal. I think I've got every right to do that, and I don't think I was disrespectful by declining such an offer. I think it was just what I didn't want to go there, so I think that should be respected, and I think she's taken it a bit more personally than she needs to, really.
Do you receive regular evaluations in the workplace over the period of time that you've been there?
Yes, yeah.
And have your evaluations been okay?
Yeah, they're all fine. Everything. I've never received any negative opinions or thoughts on my work and my relationships with my colleagues. So I really can't understand why she is saying such things. And I do think it is because she wants revenge on what's happened in the past with her wanting to have a more personal relationship, and I just want to keep it professional.
And Cornelia, have you provided workplace feedback for Fiona in the past? Are you in charge of her evaluations, or do you do regular meetings or anything with her?
I don't believe so, or I have not.
The times in the past when you've had problems with Fiona's, there have been incidences where you felt that she was being defiant or behaving inappropriately. Did you sit down and talk to her about those?
No, I did not discuss this with her.
Okay. Would you like to talk to her about any of those events now, or would you like to bring any of those issues out to help us further our discussion?
Sure. I think your colleagues and you have a wonderful rapport. However, I don't think that necessarily translates to the relationship you have with your supervisor, regardless of the dinner situation. You tend to lack courtesy and appreciation for proper protocol. I may not have verbally brought this to your attention or discussed this with you in evaluations. However, it has been in my purview and in my attention that this is occurring. Specifically, I cannot recall any instances, and I can check and see if I reported any of those in a personnel file or something like that. But again, I don't think this is a one-off incident where your son became sick, you missed 3 days and didn't call. It's a repeated pattern of this lack of professionalism.
Okay, and how long have the two of you been working together?
I believe a few years.
And Fiona, prior to working with Cornelia, did you have a good relationship with your supervisor before?
Yeah, I mean, I always have. I've always been very welcoming, helpful, do my best that I can in my jobs, always. But I do like to keep it professional. I would never, break that. But I do think that's fair, and I've always been a hard worker and done the best that I can. But I just don't think it's fair for her to come, to say that I haven't, acted in the right way when she's never even spoken to me about it. If I had acted in such a way, then I feel like she should have told me. I don't think it's fair to bring this all up now after I've had a traumatic incident, and she's bringing all these other things up, saying, well, you've acted disrespectfully in other ways, when I've never been notified of it. And I don't think it's a reason. I can't say that it's a reason because of my son's illness to then say this is the last straw, and this isn't acting disrespectfully, this was a personal situation. I did what I could at the time to inform my work of it, and I don't think it should be compared with any disrespectful behaviour. Not that I feel that I have done or acted in such a way, but I don't think that my son nearly dying and maybe not being so friendly towards people, but I've not intentionally done so, can be linked and like put together and given as a reason for my firing. I don't think that's fair at all.
Okay. I think at this time I'd like to speak with each of you individually, if that's okay with you, just for a few minutes each. It shouldn't take more than 3 to 5 minutes each. And I'm going to speak with you first, Fiona, since you brought the case. And if you can just stand out in the hallway for just a second, it'll just take a quick second. Thank you. So I just want to say before we start talking that the same confidentiality applies to what we're saying right now, and I won't share anything with Cornelia or outside of this conversation unless you're okay with that.
Yeah.
So you've expressed to me that you would like to have your job back, even if temporarily.
Yes.
And is that and possibly an apology? Are those the main things that you would like to see happen?
An apology would be great, because I feel like she's got no understanding of the situation whatsoever. I would like my job back because I don't want to have it on my record that I've been fired, and it'll give me time to decide what I want to do. I would also like to be given compensation really for the time that I've been fired.
Okay.
And be paid for the month in which I want to work for until I decide whether I'm going to go to this other opportunity that I've been given.
And how long have you been out?
So I've been out of work for 3 weeks, and then I'd like another 4 weeks pay as well, so 7 weeks in total.
But for that other 4 weeks, you would be
Working.
You would be working.
Yeah, but I'd like to get my job back, you see, so it's not on my record that I've been fired, and I want to have that cover for that amount of time until I've made my decision, because obviously I'm a single parent. I can't afford to be unemployed, especially when my son's got health conditions. It's just it just can't happen. So I'd also like compensation for I've had 2 weeks of paid holiday that I haven't yet taken.
Okay.
So that would also be, but mainly I just want my job back, and an apology would just, because they just show no sympathy whatsoever for my situation.
Okay. I think so. I have as the issues that you're really concerned about. You'd like to have your job back.
Yes.
You'd like to be paid for the 3 weeks that you were out.
Yes.
If you get your job back, I don't think it would be an issue that you'll get you get paid for the time that you're working, and that you'll get compensated for your vacation time. You'll either get vacation or you'll get. So if we managed, if you managed to get your job back, that would be something that I think would just self-resolve. If it's not possible for you to go back and work, is there an alternative that you could think of?
The only issue really, if I didn't get my job back, would be my record. It would show to me that that's my only issue. But obviously, because I do have this other opportunity, it won't be. It's not my main concern. But I'm just concerned of my record. I don't want it to look like I've been fired.
Okay.
But I suppose I do have this other opportunity coming, so it's not necessarily that I want to be a long-term employee of the company anyway. It's just the way I've been treated by them and how it's ended that I'm not too happy with, really.
Right. Okay. So I think I understand the main issues for you. Centrally lying around the compensation and making sure that your record is clear.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you to step out for just a second and bring Cornelia back in, and then we'll get back together and talk about it. So is it okay if I share any of this with her, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Oh, no, the chair's so, from your perspective, what would you like to see as an outcome of this?
I do not, or would not like to see Fiona return to the workplace. I guess from my position as a supervisor, morale at work is fairly low, and she has caused in my opinion, has caused issues in the past with things like that. And I do feel badly about the situation and how it brought about her missing work and not notifying me. However, I don't think that negates work procedure and protocol. So my preference is to continue with her termination and not have her come back to the workplace.
Okay, so I just want to tell you a little bit about our conversation we're having now. I know I said at the beginning this is completely confidential between the two of us, unless you're comfortable with me sharing this information with her. And how do you feel about that? I mean, that might be something that would be better coming from you, you know, telling her that you're not comfortable with her coming back. Is that?
When she's
Yes,
back?
when she comes back, yeah.
Sure, that's fine for you to share or myself.
Are there any other issues that you think that I should know about?
No, it's just, as any business is, it's financially unfeasible to move forward with lawsuits, constantly downsizing given the current technology, things like that. So there are underlying traditional business issues going on. So we hope that, or I hope that we can just continue to move forward. And, you know, not having her come back into the office space will allow us to the staff to handle those potential flows or downsizing in the future.
Okay, and so do I understand that you haven't replaced Fiona yet, and
No.
possibly you're not replacing her position, or you're just downsizing?
We are not looking to replace her at the moment.
Okay. And everything's going okay with that? Do you feel short-staffed or?
No, yeah, it seems to be fine. Yeah, it's just, we've lost someone, however, not necessarily looking to replace them on the workforce.
Okay, I'm gonna have her come back in and we'll see if we can put some issues down on paper that maybe we can resolve some of this. So thank you guys for, you know, being patient and talking to me individually. I think you both agreed that it's okay if I share what we talked about, but there were, you know, kind of huge, gigantic revelations. It was basically what we had talked about. I just wanted to give each of you, you know, a forum for talking privately. So the main issues that, as I see it in this particular case, I think Fiona has expressed a concern about getting her job back, but she also expressed to me that it was very important for her not to have this blemish on her record, that she's been fired. She also is a little bit concerned about security for her son and for herself in keeping health insurance and the pay for the time that she's missed at work, and some losses that she's had with losing her holiday time. And then Cornelia, you sort of expressed a little bit in our private conversation that you wouldn't feel incredibly comfortable with Fiona coming back into the workplace at this point. So I think the big issues we have to talk about are whether or not Fiona can get her job back, whether or not, as part of that, there's some other solution that you guys can think of that would sort of resolve some of your concerns about having that blemish on your record, and maybe resolve some of your concerns about the time you've missed from work. And it sounds to me like you do have some other opportunities available. So, you know, it's more a concern of having it on your record and making sure that you're compensated for this time in between. So are there any other things that we should, any other issues we should put on the agenda?
Also, just that I want an apology, really, like
Okay.
just for them just to show some sort of sympathy for what I've been through, because I feel like it's not been the case at all.
Okay, so, and I actually, and I'll say this, but I mean, maybe it will sound better coming from Cornelia, but she did express to me that she did feel, you know, very bad about what happened with your son and his illness. So I think that first we should probably talk about what it would look like for each of you if you got your job back or if you didn't get your job back, and see if we can come up with maybe some other options. So what would it look like? I mean, what would be acceptable for you moving forward if you didn't go back to work?
So if I didn't get my job back, well, I would like compensation for the 3 weeks that I've been fired for. But I'd also, if it was possible, for it not to go on the record that I was fired, maybe like another way, like my own decision of leaving. I don't want to have that on the record, that termination, because it'll just make things harder for me in the future, especially for a situation in which it occurred. It's not fair for it to be, I don't think it's fair for it to be a firing, but I am willing to discuss other ways in which we can figure out, instead of it being fired on my record. And as long as I get compensation, I'd like to have my health insurance covered really until maybe I can get another job, or until I figure out what I'm doing with all my other opportunities. Health insurance would be good to have over the next month, just until I've got myself in a secure situation again. And I feel that would be, acceptable from the situation in which I've had to leave. It'd be understanding, maybe, if they could do that.
Okay, so you would consider not pursuing this as an unfair firing if you were to receive compensation for the 3 weeks you've been out,
Mm-hmm.
and for them to cover your health insurance coverage for at
Yes.
least another month.
Yes, I've still got security until I've got a stable job again.
Okay, and also for them to give you a way to leave the situation without it being called
Yes.
firing.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that, Cornelia?
I think that's completely fair and understandable considering what's happening. And as long as it's with the rate at which you're being paid beforehand, I don't see why it should be an issue to not blemish your record and include you with the health insurance and to move forward without a lawsuit.
Yeah, that sounds good. Could I also mention about my 2 weeks unpaid paid holiday?
Yes.
I've got that, and I'd like to still get that money. I think it's about 2,000. It was 2 weeks. It would be £2,200. Yeah, I feel like they said I couldn't get it because I forfeited my right, but I don't think that's fair at all. I feel I'm entitled to that under the circumstances.
Okay, so how do you feel about that, Cornelia? Is that something that could be added?
I feel like that's slightly unfair, just based off the fact that you were fired from the position, and being quite generous with extending health insurance, which will probably cost us more than the $2,000 for the month you're gone, in addition to the 3 weeks compensation. Is there any way we could give you a portion of that instead of the whole 2 weeks?
Yeah, just, you see, the thing is, if I don't get my job back, I'm going to have a period of time where I'm not working. And so the opportunity that I have had won't start for another month. So I've got 7, if I don't get the 3 weeks pay that I've missed, I'd have 7 weeks of no income. So I feel like I need as much as I'm entitled to as I can get. So if I'm only going to get 3 weeks of the pay and not the full 7, then I feel like I should be entitled to the holidays, which I have already been entitled to, but can't get because I was fired. So I do think I am being a bit more reasonable there, because I'm not asking for the full 7 weeks. I'm happy to, leave, not carry on for another month, but maybe get a holiday instead. I mean, maybe, okay, I could get less than 2 weeks, but I think I should be entitled to some sort of thing.
You were entitled to 7 weeks of paid vacation?
No, 2 weeks of paid vacation. The 7 weeks was the 3 weeks that I've been fired for, and then the 4 weeks until I was going to leave on my own terms to start my other job. So initially I would have liked to have those 7 weeks given to me full, and then the 2 weeks of paid vacation on top of that I wasn't entitled to.
So just to clarify, so what you're asking for at this point would be 5 weeks instead of
Yeah,
the 9
instead of
weeks that you
the-
were originally
yeah.
seeking in your lawsuit?
Yes,
Is there any way we can give you a week of the paid vacation, making it 4 full weeks to get you more than halfway through into your next job?
yeah. I suppose I could figure that out. Yeah, I can understand that. And I suppose I do have the security of probably starting up another business. So yeah. Just as my other main concern, obviously, that I don't want to have fired on my record. I would like it in, if that is in another form, maybe that I voluntarily chose to leave, or just so it's not on my record, like terminated.
Absolutely.
So perhaps you could write a letter of resignation, is that
Yeah,
something,
that
and then you
sounds-
could accept it, and that way it would be a little bit different, it wouldn't be.
That'd be
Yeah,
completely acceptable.
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. I mean, is there anything else that we need to work out?
Not really. I feel like they have shown their sympathy and they have apologised, so I'm pleased with that. I mean, obviously I haven't got my job back, but I feel like we have worked it out, so it's not, a firing, and I do still get some money. I've got a bit of security, so I can understand. Because I do understand that I should have rung up and I should have informed them, and maybe I didn't act in the right way at the time when I yelled and got angry, but I feel like this situation is benefited me in a way that's helpful, yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we have an agreement. So I just want to go over it just to make sure that we all have it right, and then we'll write it up and you guys can both sign it. So Cornelia, your company is going to compensate Fiona for the 3 weeks that she was out, so that's 3 weeks salary, plus an additional week for paid vacation. And you're going to maintain her health insurance for the next 30 days. And then Fiona, you're going to write a letter of resignation, which the company will then accept, so that this is removed from your employment record. And I think that's it. Are you happy with that? Does that
Yes,
cover everything?
yeah.
Are you happy and satisfied with that? Okay, it sounds like we have a deal. Good job.
Thank you.
That was fast. You got it almost.